Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we go on to the fifth verse. Yo mam dustara geha nirjala maha kupad apara klamat sadya sandra dayam buddhi prakritita svairi kripa rajuvi udrityatma soro janindi charana prantam prapadya swayam Shri Damodara Satchakaratamaham Chaitanya Chandram Bhaje. I worship that moon-like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who entrusted me to Sri Swarup Damodar. Yomam dustarage hanirjala mahakubad apara klamat sadya sandra dhayambudi prakritita svairi kripa rajubi. With the ropes of his mercy, kripa rajubi, he has lifted me out of the miserable, deep, dark well of geha nirjala, household life, which has no water. Nirjala mahakupad. It's a very interesting example if we think about whenever they refer to household life, they talk about it as a waterless well. The only point of having a well is to have water in the well. So if a well doesn't have water in it, then it's without any purpose. But whenever they talk about the geha or household life, they call it a nirjala mahakupad, a waterless, dark, deep and dry well. If it was a well with water, then it would be useful. But it's a well that is dry without water.
Before you told about gate to household life.
Gate?
You told gate?
No. Anyhow, so let's see what Gurudev has to say. So Sadhya Sandra Dhayam Buddhi Prakritita Svairi Kripa Rajubi. So with the ropes of Mahaprabhu's mercy, Das Goswami says, he has lifted me out of this waterless deep well of family life, which is very hard to cross over. And he has placed me at his lotus flower-like feet and given me shelter there. Therefore he prays to that Chaitanya Chandra. So the first three slokas are related to Aprakrit Leela in Braj. In the first sloka he prayed to Guru Saki Rupa Manjari. In the second sloka he prayed to Rupa as well as to his Aradhya Devi, worshipful deity Shrimati Radhika. The third sloka is a benediction to his Swarup as Rati Manjari. The fourth sloka is when his external consciousness comes as Raghunath Das Goswami. It's also Siddha Swarup, not like our external consciousness. Then, in the fourth sloka, he prays to Yadunandanacharya in his Siddha Swarup of Prakrit Leela. So he's saying, as Raghunath, it's also a perfect spiritual form, but it's in this worldly pastime. And in the fifth verse now, he is praying to Mahaprabhu, who has lifted him up out of family life and given him his association and given him the shelter of Swarup Damodar. Gurudev makes an interesting point saying that the second slok and the fifth slok are connected. The second is to Radhika and to Rupa, and the fifth is to Mahaprabhu. But then Gurudev makes the point that actually this Mahaprabhu is just the same as Radharani in the sense that he only has the mood of Radharani. That he doesn't think I am Krishna. In his pastimes in Puri, later in Navadvip, he only has this mood of being Radharani. So Gurudev makes that point that Krishna is completely absorbed in the mood of Radhika as Mahaprabhu. So Raghunath is praying to Mahaprabhu, but it's like almost like a prayer to Radhika also, because Mahaprabhu is absorbed in this mood of Radharani. And the example is given like iron. When iron is in fire for a long time, it becomes so hot that it gets the qualities of fire. Becomes as if it is fire. Gurudev makes the point, it's not like the iron is thinking, oh, I am iron. It becomes so hot, it becomes absorbed in this idea, I am fire, if it would have consciousness. So Krishna does not think I am Krishna. He only feels I am Srimati Radhika. And that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore the second verse and the fifth verse are connected, parallel. Then Yomam dustara geha nirjala mahakupad aparaklamat. So Raghunath says that this household life is like a very dangerous dry well. And in the bottom there are many serpents and scorpions and other poisonous forms of life. So he makes that point. And we talked about 5 and 6 together, that verse number 6 is also about Vairagya. So 5 and 6 are also connected. In 5 he talks about the household life being like a well, and in the 6 he talks about Sanatana Goswami being very merciful to have also helped him escape. Even though he did not want to, he said. So you can say, like, in family life, we're looking for happiness in this world, right? We want to be happy. And so we think we'll be happy by entering this kind of relationship. But at the end, we only become plagued by many problems. That's scorpions and spiders and snakes at the bottom of the well. We go into the well looking for some sanctuary, some peaceful environment where we can live happily in this world. But ultimately, this kind of family life only increases material problems, like scorpions and snakes and spiders constantly biting us. So it's not that no one should become a householder, but at the same time we should understand the situation, and that ultimately material life cannot give us full happiness. If we really want to be happy, we need to enter into transcendental life. Many of Mahaprabhu's associates were householders, but there's a difference between proper grihastha ashram, which is proper devotional household life, and then what is griha maid, which means household life without any worship of Krishna, without Thakurji, without any bhakti. But Raghunath's family was also Vaishnav family. Raghunath's family, they were Vaishnavas. They worshipped Thakurji, they served the sadhus, they served Haridas, they served Nityananda, they gave so much money to Raghunath for serving Mahaprabhu also. So they weren't like ordinary householders. They weren't karmis, they were Vaishnavas. So Mahaprabhu said they are Vaishnav Prai. Externally they appear like Vaishnavas, but because internally their heart is not one-pointedly dedicated to Krishna Bhakti, therefore it is only like a show. Many people may look like Vaishnavas, but unless we have, it said, of the 26 symptoms of a Vaishnav, the most important is complete surrender to Krishna and endeavoring always to please Krishna and serve him in a favorable way. And so externally we may be doing many of the other activities of bhakti, but if we're not surrendered and trying to please Krishna, then this is not bhakti, and we are not real Vaishnavas. We are Vaishnav Prai, the semblance of Vaishnavas, aspiring Vaishnavas perhaps. And Griha Maid means there's no worship of Krishna, there's no faith, there's no Thakurji, we're like complete atheists. Or we may be devotees in name, but we don't follow bhakti at all. We're engaged in many illicit activities. We're always taking things against the regulative principles. We're not following any Vaidhi Bhakti, not chanting anything. This is also Griha Maid, and this is described to be like a deep and dark well that is dry and always giving pain. The story is told of the man being chased by the tiger. We talked about this church story before with the devotees from China, the guests. So Gurudev mentions this story when talking about this purport. So he says, you know the story. The man was being chased by the tiger, and he jumps into the well, holding onto 2 branches to escape the tiger. And then he looks underneath, and the spiders and scorpions and snakes are trying to jump up and grab him from underneath. And the black and white mice are chewing on the branches so that it will cut through and he'll break and fall down. And if he climbs out, he gets eaten by the tiger. If he waits, he falls down. If he lets go, he gets eaten by the snakes and the spiders and scorpions. And in the meantime, a drop of honey is falling from the tree above him, and he sticks his tongue out to taste a few drops. And he tastes one drop and thinks, now I'm happy. And for a little moment, he forgets his plight of his dangerous situation. So we should come to the realization that this body is also a house that we are in. The soul is fallen in this body. This body can be described like a deep and dark well. And we're thinking we'll be happy here, and we're trying to experience happiness through our senses. And we taste a little bit of happiness, but ultimately we suffer so much. And so if we're intelligent, we should try to come out of this well And if we want to get out of this well, then the only course of deliverance, our only refuge, our only way we can get out is by this Kripa Rajubi. That he says in this verse, Kripa Rajubi means the ropes of mercy. So we must pray for those ropes of mercy, and then we can grab onto them and escape. So that story is given in the Bhagavatam, 7th canto. Sadhya Sandra Dhayam Buddhi Prakritita Svairi Kripa Rajubi. By his causeless mercy, Mahaprabhu, independently, without any obstruction, gave me those ropes of mercy and pulled me out. Therefore, he is the personification of condensed mercy. Raghunath remembers that I was living like a king, so we should not think that, for example, if we are suffering in this world, very poor, like orphans, then we are suffering. But if we are in a very opulent situation with a nice partner and we externally are very happy, then that is also not in the deep dark well of family life. That Raghunath was living like a king, so an ordinary person would be very happy. Raghunath was married to what Gurudev describes as Miss Universe. Very beautiful wife, and he had so much wealth, he was like a prince. And yet still, he said that this family life was like a deep dark well where he was suffering. So it's not that for those who are happy and healthy and rich and wealthy, then everything is nice. And for the poor people, everything is bad. Actually, if we are living in samsara, then we are in a situation of anxiety and suffering. Even though his family loved him so much. Then Gurudev tells the story of Chitraketu Maharaj and how he was materially attached. And he said that actually it can be more difficult to do bhajan if you're in a nice family situation. It can be more difficult. Therefore, Krishna says, Tvama kinchana gocharam. If you're in a suffering condition externally, then it can help you develop towards Krishna Bhakti more quickly. Isko band kar lo. Can you tell him to turn this off? Oh no, it's too loud. Okay. Okay, but Gurudev also makes an interesting point. This is interesting. That Gurudev says, this is something that Param Gurudev said. It's a very interesting thing. Param Gurudev said that people who come from very loving families and a nice environment, if they come and do Hari Bhajan, it's easier for them to advance than for someone who is like a beggar or an orphan to come into Bhakti. It's an interesting thing. Param Gurudev would say like this, that those who come from a situation where their family is very affectionate, their mother and father are very nice, their brothers and sisters are very loving to them, and then they come and try to do Bhakti and Bhajan, and they follow this process, then they can easily advance. But the problem is sometimes people who come from very poor backgrounds, and then when they're in the ashram, if they see a little bit of opulence, they become attracted towards that, and they lose focus of the real goal. If someone left behind wealth and a nice family already and came to do bhajan, then they won't be distracted by the opulence that surrounds Guru and Vaishnavas.
So this is your secret.
I was not wealthy. He said if some people come and wear the dress of a sadhu, but were from like beggarly families, or were like beggars, then as sadhus they will try to collect all those things that they couldn't get before. But if someone is wealthy and gave it all up, then it will be easier for them to progress. And he told a story that in Calcutta, once Param Gurudev was traveling by train, and when he was stopping at the train, he met some members of different societies who were only focused on social work. And they criticized Param Gurudev, saying, you only take the cream of society. You take the educated youth who are from good backgrounds or middle class or upper class families. You don't take beggars and poor people. So you are discriminating. So Param Gurudev said, okay, there are many beggars living here nearby, And he went to them and he said, will you come to the ashram? I will give you all facility. You can stay nicely. We'll give you food, a room, everything. And you should come. And they said, no, I cannot come now. He said, why not? He said, do you have any children? He said, no, I don't have any children. Any family, any home, any land, anything? The person said, no, I don't have anything. Param Gurudev took these people and showed them. And Param Gurudev said, come, you'll have a nice place to stay. You don't have to worry about making money. You don't have to worry about your maintenance. You should come. But again, he was like delaying and saying, no, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. And finally said, why are you waiting? He said, oh, I have one like shack. Like if you see beggars where they stay by the train tracks, sometimes they take some old pieces of wood and they'll put some plastic over it, or they'll collect rice sacks and stitch them together and make some kind of shack. And she said, oh, I have one like not wife, but like friend there. Like a wife. And if I go, oh, what will she do? She's also a beggar. All day I beg and I take home a few rupees and then she cooks something. He said, you're suffering there. I know you're suffering. You should come to the mat, worship Krishna. You'll get everything you ever can imagine. But he wouldn't go. He said she can also do bhajan, but she also wouldn't go because of their attachment. So then Gurudev told them, look, this person cannot stay with us. He has nothing to leave. And the people who have come to the mat, they left everything. They had good educations, nice family, a wealthy background, and good prospects also for good business. But yet they left everything and came. You look at Gurudev. Gurudev was like one of the top officers in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. In a wealthy position, 2 young daughters, a nice family, and he left it. Param Gurudev was a landowner. Narottam Das Thakur was a prince. Raghunath Das Goswami was a prince, living like a king, but they left everything. Even though Raghunath had everything that would keep him at home, he had a beautiful wife, he had so much wealth, his mother and father were so affectionate, it was very difficult to give these things up, yet he gave it up. So if we're in such a situation where it's very difficult to give it up, and yet we still give it up, then later on when we're doing bhajan, when the stage of, it said the first 2 stages of bhakti, Kleshagni and Subhada. Kleshagni means burning off of our bad karmas. And at that time, different troubles come. Prabhuji and Gurudev give the example that when we first come to the mat and start doing a lot of bhakti, then our mind will become more disturbed. Our body will get many sicknesses because it's our karma very quickly getting burned off. Like millions of lifetimes of karma are being burned off very quickly, in a few years maybe. And so it gives you some more discomfort. But this is the stage of Kleshagni, burning off everything impure. And when you cross past that stage, then the next stage comes, which is called Subhada, which means the dawn of auspiciousness. At that time, people start respecting you, giving you money, honoring you. And it's very difficult to tolerate that stage, even more difficult than the first stage of Kleshagni. So Gurudev said that if someone has left everything behind, then when people start honoring them and giving them things, it'll be easier for them to be disinclined towards these things, to neglect them, than if they had never had anything and all of a sudden they become like royalty. Ultimately, it's a personal process, so we don't say that people who are more destitute cannot progress in that way. It's not like always black and white. But sometimes you see like poor village kids will come and then after some years they'll leave with a Western wife and get a Western job. And for many years they stayed in the mat. We see this in ISKCON, in the Gaudiya Mat also, where there are Westerners. They'll stay some time and then wait for some Western wife. And then they go to the West and get a green card. And then get a Western job and a good salary. Before they could not collect like 10 rupees, but then they get $10,000, $20,000, $40,000. So it's not always like that, but sometimes the case is like that. Okay, so then Gurudev makes another important point, and let's see what time it is. We'll stop with this. If we desire to serve Srimati Radhika, if we really want to take the benefit of studying Vilapa-kusumanjali, We shouldn't think we're studying Vilapa-kusumanjali to get some scholarly knowledge or to become very expert in Gaudiya philosophy. If we're not developing greed for serving Srimati Radhika in Braj, then our study will be fruitless. We're trying to increase our lobh, our spiritual greed. And as long as we have even a scent, a small fragrance of samsara priti, which means material love and affection, samsara priti, any attachment to this world and relationships in this world. What is the root thing that's holding us to this world? It's the bondage of samsara means the bondage of attachment to material relationships. These are what's binding us in this world. That's called samsara priti. As long as we have even a scent of that samsara priti, attachment to family, mother, father, friend, wife, the body also, even the body, first attachment comes for the body. And then when we're physically attached to our body, then we'll be attached to those who give happiness to the body, our wife, our husband, anywhere we get money or anywhere we get happiness. As long as we have any of that attachment, we cannot truly enter into Vilapa-kusumanjali and benefit from it. So therefore, it's very important for us. Now, after these first few verses, we're going to start hearing about the very intimate services to Srimati Radhika. And so these verses are an important foundation and an important meditation for us to remember. As long as we have these attachments to samsara, we will not be able to truly progress towards serving Srimati Radhika. And so it's a very difficult stage to cross, but it's essential. And we cannot do it like at one moment, but we should become aware of this, meditate on this, and also we should pray. Mahaprabhu told Raghunath, we should remember this. Gare jao na hoa batul. Remember? He said, go home, don't be like a madman. Gare jao na hao batul. Don't be like a madman where you are rushing or impetuously leaving family life. Because then you may become like a vantasi. You may be what is called like a vomit eater. You leave everything, you give up everything, and become a sadhu, a renunciant, and then after a few years you develop a new family life. And then you're called a vomit eater. You threw it up, and then you're eating it again. So therefore he said, don't rush. Gare jao na hao batul. But when he was ready, then Mahaprabhu took him out. And then when Raghunath came to Mahaprabhu, he said, you're very lucky. You have given up that stool-like pit of family life. When he met him in Puri, he said, it's like you have left behind a pit of stool. When you pass stool, you should not look back. You should immediately flush it down the toilet. You shouldn't be attached. So he says like that. Okay, then one last important point that Gurudev mentions. He said we shouldn't think grihastha means just living in a house. If we are sadhus living in an ashram, that's also grihastha. Sta means situated. And griha means in a home. Grihastha, being situated in a home. Sta, right? So what does it mean to be grihastha? He said if you live inside a home, that's not the real criteria. One who has grihini, which means a wife, or in a woman's case, a husband, as the center of one's existence, that is a grihastha or a grihameda. So if you are attached and the whole purpose of your life is centered around your wife or your husband, then you are grihastha. And you're also called grihamedi. If Krishna is at the center of your life, then you are Vaishnava, you are devotee. So let's stop there and continue tomorrow. Questions?
So sometimes we are learning this standard very high,
Yes.
in our relationship. But if we are jumping to this, also no good.
Yeah, that's why Mahaprabhu said, Gare jao na hoy batul. Don't be like a madman.
We are not like fully brahmacharinis, because we may be not married, we're single, but we are not actually up to this standard of a real brahmacharini. But other people may projecting this more to you. You should like this and you should like this.
Yeah, this is true. This is
But
true.
we have to be conscious about our level also and do the proper things.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes they say, oh, brahmacharis should not have these bank accounts, this and that.
We have to be practical also, yeah.
It's very practical. You could not leave.
It depends on each person's case is individual. Now we're like students in a school. क्या महाराज?
लोगों को ऐसे पागल बनाते रहा करो.
हाँ.
What asked you? Ask from me. What happened? What is your problem?
No problem.
Everything is okay?
If someone is like brahmachari or sannyasi, this is mostly for them. And if someone is a student or in white cloth, then they are practicing. But also, even for people in white cloth, if they stay a long time in the temple and then leave, Gurudev would be very disturbed. We have some examples of people who are in white cloth, not in saffron, which means they are not like fully taken the vow of lifelong celibacy, brahmacharya. And they stayed after 7-8 years, they wanted to leave, and Gurudev became very angry and very upset. He said, I've given you so much, and yet you still want to leave me. And you've learned everything, you know everything, and still you want to leave me. And with some people he said, I don't want to see you again. Some people traveled with him also, not only in the ashram. There were some devotees who traveled with Gurudev and later got married. Some were preachers and got married, and Gurudev rejected them. He wouldn't see them for many years. He never saw them again. 2 people in particular. So therefore we have to be careful. But everything is according to our standard. Nah? Some people, if they are like with Gurudev for 10, 15 years, serving and always with him, and then they leave, then it's like a pain in Gurudev's heart, because he invested so much energy in serving and helping them. And then the main thing is like if you are living like a single, it's more easy to focus your time in bhakti and bhajan. If you're in a family and you have children, you have to spend a lot of energy taking care of them, working and in society, going to school. It's very hard to focus directly all the time on Krishna bhakti. It's not that one is... So we can discuss more tomorrow. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. But the main thing is, yes, we don't have to jump. It's according to our stage. And we see in Swami Prabhupada's time in ISKCON, he encouraged many people to become family members, but they should continue trying to serve and keeping bhakti at the center, Krishna at the center. But not everyone is on the same level. And the same standard doesn't apply to everyone. And we have to also follow according to our adhikar. Gangamata Goswamini, she gave up everything and lived.
You were not in that high level.
Give up the example of the prostitute who came to Haridas. She was a prostitute. And after 3 days with Haridas, hearing him chant 3 lakhs every day, or not even, she didn't hear 3 lakhs, she came in the evening, so maybe she heard 1 lakh. And then after 3 days, she surrendered to him, and she said, what should I do? He said, go home and sell everything, or give away everything to Brahmins, and all the wealth you collected, come back and save your hair, and be a sadhu, and chant every day, stay by Tulsi every day, and everyone will serve you. And if you look what happened with her, everyone would come and serve her, give her fruits, so much she couldn't even take. She had to distribute it all. So if you're really a sadhu, like, Krishna will definitely maintain you. Radharani says that in Brahmar Geet. Many people have come and become like us gopis after Krishna left Braj. They are laying around in Braj like abandoned. And yet they are being maintained. And we see Krishna promises, Yogakshema vahamyaham. I always protect my devotees. Name bhakta pranasyati. My bhaktas are never destroyed. They're always maintained by me. I always carry what they lack, preserve what they have. Krishna has taken this vow. But at the same time, we have to be practical. Both sides.
Yeah, but they also mentioned in the West, you cannot beg him even. Because the society is very emotional society. The business mind, you know. You cannot even beg him from them. It's
Yeah.
the society is changing. They're not supporting this